We've got a lot of other special guests, but they're up here in our managers sections. You saw them up on the screen. They're the people that make this place work. We have a larger and better cast this year than we've had even in the past, and it'll grow in the future. This is a company of managers, and we confess to how little we do around headquarters, as you saw in the movie, and we now have, I think, I'm not sure of the exact number, whether we had it's 130,000 now or something like that, people working all over the world in all kinds of occupations. And I think they get a sense when they come here that they're working for real people on this side too. I mean, they get to see people who are actual owners. So we have some institutional owners, but we have 350,000 individual owners now, and I believe it's correct to say that our stock turns over, there's less turnover in the shares of Berkshire than any other company of major size in the country, which means in effect we have more what I would call real owners, people who want to be in partnership with the kind of managers we have, and Charlie and I are very proud of them. Now we're going to get to the questions in just one second. I thought I would give you a little update on particularly the insurance aspects of the first quarter, because insurance cost us a lot of money last year. It's our main business. It's always going to be our main business. It's a very, very big business, and it's going to get bigger. And there were some special events of last year, and there were some mistakes of our own that made it a bad year for insurance last year. Our float last year cost us almost 13%, and that's a lot to pay for money. It's not our record. We had a period in the 80s when we ran into even more difficulties. But I think there's been well, I know there's been a change in the market. There's been a change to a degree in the culture at a very important unit, and I think that barring some really mega catastrophe, and we'll talk about those later possibilities, that we are I think we're doing pretty well. You will see that two good things happened in the first quarter. One is our float increased by $1.8 billion. That's a lot of money to take in net. I don't think there's any company probably in the world that had a gain in float that was even close to that. And we actually achieved that with a small underwriting profit. So the float not only cost us nothing in the first quarter, but we had a gain of $1.8 billion in it, and all units contributed to that. And our goal is to obtain more and more float at minimal or no cost. And there have been a number of years in the past when we've run an underwriting profit, which means that the use of that money is essentially free, or even better than free. And we've had one very bad year and a couple of so-so years before that. But I think our cost of float over the next few years, unless you get into an extraordinary catastrophe, I think it should be pretty satisfactory. Now you'll notice there's a note down at the bottom that's slightly technical, but it's an important enough item in Berkshire and in understanding our cost of float that I thought I'd just devote a minute to it. If you find this uninteresting, you can live a happy life without understanding what I'm about to explain next. You may even lead a happier life if you don't understand it. As I look at the people that understand it and don't understand it, I'm not sure which group is happier. But when we write a good bit, and have written a good bit, I should say, of retroactive insurance. Now, in retroactive insurance, a company may come to us that's merging with another company, and they want to put a cap on their liabilities or define them better from past incidents. So they may come to us and say, we want you to pick up all the losses that are going to be paid from things that happened prior to, say, 1990. And we think that we owe $1 billion have yet to be paid in losses from that period, but we want to protect ourselves up to, say, $2 billion or some number like that. So they write us a check, and we take over. This is called retroactive insurance. We take over their losses from the past for a specific period and for a specific amount. And when we do that, the accounting, it's not accounting you run into every day. We've explained it in the past, but it creates a charge which will occur over time in the future. And as you can see, in the first quarter, the 20 million of underwriting profit we made was after a total of 112 million for the amortization of this charge that is set up. So if a company comes in and says, for example, we want you to protect us up to $1.5 billion for losses that occurred in the past, and we'll give you $1 billion for it, we will debit cash for $1 billion, and we'll debit this deferred charge for half a billion, and we'll set up a liability for $1.5 billion. And that 500 million we set up as a deferred charge, we amortize over a period of time as we expect to pay the claims. Now, there would be a lot of room for judgment. There is a lot of room for judgment in terms of how fast we amortize that. We try to be conservative. We make an estimate of when we will pay those claims and how much we will pay, and we try to amortize it over a reasonable period. I've got another slide that shows how those amortization charges will work over time. And we're going to put these slides on the internet because we feel that our shareholders should understand the impact of these charges that will come against underwriting profits. In the year 2002, we will have a 400 million plus charge for this. It's built into the figures now. And if we do 20 billion of premium volume, that's about a 2% charge. So to have our float be cost-free, we have to make 400 plus million on underwriting elsewhere in order to offset that. And as you can see, we did that the first quarter, and we'll find out whether we do it for the full year. It's not many companies do this kind of business, and it's a big item with us, so I really want all the shareholders to understand it, and for that reason, we'll put it on the internet. I should emphasize that in all of these contracts, we cap our liability. So a lot of these contracts apply to liabilities that primarily, or not primarily, but in a significant way, and often primarily, arise from asbestos. But when you read about asbestos claims accelerating and all of that, the numbers are capped in our case, so in all of these contracts. So we really don't care whether we pay it on an asbestos claim or whether we pay it on an old auto liability claim or whatever. The question is whether we've been correct in estimating the speed at which we will pay. And in some cases, we may pay even less than our maximum amount. So anyway, that's available for those of you who previously were unhappy not understanding this and now are thrilled to know how it all works. Now, the final item, which is a little easier to understand, is we talked in the annual report about how we expected growth to resume at GEICO, and I've put up, again, I can't see whether they're up there, but I assume that we have the GEICO policies in force figure and the increase by, Charlie hasn't seen these as a matter of fact, so I'll give him the slides. And as you can see, growth, not at the rates of a couple of years ago, but quite a turnaround from last year. Growth is resumed at GEICO in a reasonable way. We figure each policyholder of a preferred nature is worth $1,000 to us, at least. And so if we add 40,000 policyholders in a month, we've created, in our view, $40 million of value. And of course, we have the earnings and the float and so on that goes with it. As you'll noticed on the first slide, GEICO operated at a significant underwriting profit in the first quarter. So all of its float was free, and its float has continued to grow. You saw one of our little squirrel ads there, which I liked. We are not getting a whole lot more inquiries than a year ago, but we're closing a significantly higher percentage of those that call. So our growth has been picking up because our closure rate has increased quite substantially, and our retention rate of old policyholders also is increasing month by month. So we've got two trends that are quite favorable in terms of adding business, and the third one of adding more inquiries is something that we are working on, and we're delighted to spend a lot of money on it if we can figure out the way to spend it intelligently. But the increase in the retention ratio, the increase in the closure ratio is resulting in in very decent growth at GEICO, and it's growth in all of our categories, in the preferred class and the standard class and the non-standard class of business, whereas last year the latter two fell. Well, that's enough about the formal presentation. Now we're going to go in the various zones. I promised a young shareholder in Zone 1 that he would get to ask the first question, and that we're ready for Zone 1.